Jeff Sessions grow a pair. I mean, you have to say, in the time he's been Attorney General, hasn't been stellar, hasn't been great. But when it comes to this issue of sanctuary cities, he has been better on this issue than most. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Finally, before we go to break, just real quickly, you know, behind enemy lines, we're a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I don't feel that, like, talking about this issue without Russ is something we should do. Maybe we'll hold off on Parkland and the Second Amendment until next week. But here's what I will say, and this is what is disheartening to me. I understand that tensions run high when there's loss of life, especially loss of life of children, and the heroics that we saw from teachers and that assistant coach in Florida, and many others who acted in sacrificing themselves for others. There's no greater love than that. And I understand that we're angry that things happen. I always wonder, when we talk about anger and gun violence, why we don't direct our anger towards the proper direction. Why do we direct our anger towards law-abiding gun owners instead of directing our anger to a government that has failed to properly administer the laws already on the books that were meant to protect us? Why we're not angry that the NICS system doesn't work properly? Why we're not angry that there's this giant backlog of background checks for people buying guns? Why we're not angry that we have this giant stigma towards mental health and mental illness? Why we aren't angry at states for not reporting mental illness cases, and people having difficulties in order to disqualify them from getting guns? Why is our anger always placed towards those who advocate the legal and peaceable ownership of firearms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment? Why is our anger not directed towards these failures, but directed towards those who are trying to make sure that other people are safe? Law-abiding people who feel the need to be armed for whatever the reason may be, for recreation, for sport, for home protection, for protection of businesses, whatever the case may be, for protection of property. If for those of you who live a more rural life on farms and ranches, it's almost essential that you have firearms available to you. I don't understand why our anger is always placed towards those people and not towards the people who failed Nicholas Cruz by allowing him to have a gun because they didn't properly report that he was institutionalized and had mental difficulties and challenges. I always wonder why our anger isn't directed towards the states like Florida that failed to report that. Or, when we talk about, we talked about this with Dylan Roof, why the backlog in the federal background check system allowed him to just get the gun because the time ran out in the waiting period, and he was allowed to get the gun because the paperwork just didn't kick through the system quickly enough. It is okay to express your anger and dismay and frustration when it comes to these sorts of tragic events. But let's direct it the right way, and let's be constructive about it to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to have Sharron Angle on the show. We're going to talk a few issues. But more importantly, we want to make sure that everybody's aware that she's running again for Congress and to support her as much as we can. Gene Berardelli, Behind Enemy Lines. We'll be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to goonrecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at goonrecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record. Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air. Gene Berardelli, back behind Enemy Lines. Joining me on the line right now. It's a pleasure to welcome an old friend back to the show. We've been talking since we met, oh my goodness, could it be 2011? Sharron Angle, how are you, my dear? Great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much, Gene, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to talk with your listeners again.
Well, listen, the pleasure's all ours. And, you were one of the first Tea Party activists we met back when we just started doing this little rinky-dink show. And it's amazing to see your staying power in the conservative movement. What keeps you going?
Actually, Gene, I was Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. Remember, the Tea Party is a movement that came out of a philosophy of government, an ideology of lower taxes, less government regulation, less government overreach. In fact, we'd like to see us go back completely to the constitutional principles of the 10th Amendment that say anything that isn't enumerated for the federal government belongs to the states. And, of course, we believe what it says. If it says it in that document, that's the way we should take it. We shouldn't be trying to go around it with our laws or our judges or other ways that people have found to circumvent our Constitution. And so that was just an ideology of government that I was raised with. And that's where I ran my first races. I served, as you know, on a school board and then 4 terms in the Nevada State Legislature. And I always said that I vote against tax and fee increases, poor public policy, and unconstitutional laws. And, of course, that should be a no-brainer for someone who has taken oath to uphold the Constitution, but not necessarily so. So when in 2009, Barack Obama was elected, I think that people just said, oh my goodness, we're scared. What can we do? And that's really what the movement was. It was taxed enough already, as you remember, but really the movement was deeper than that.
Absolutely. And you're one of the few people that has not only talked the talk, but has walked the walk and have really stayed true to conservative principles. Of course, everybody remembers the heart attack you gave Harry Reid. I think it was 2010, right? Somewhere around there. And you've been rocking and rolling ever since. But let's talk about your latest endeavor, and that is you're looking at a run for Congress. So tell everybody about that.
That's right. We have a congressional district here in Nevada that was Well, there's no other word for it but gerrymandered, and I'm sure that every state has these districts where the legislature makes sure that there's one district that's just packed with Democrats and another that's just packed with Republicans so that they can play in the other two districts or however they want to do that. But the gerrymandering is still there. They try to make sure that there are packed precincts, packed legislative districts so that they can win elections. And we have one of those here in Nevada, which is packed with conservative Republicans, which is good for me. And we went for Trump, the only congressional district that really was able to go for Trump in Nevada. The rest of the state kind of veered off to the left and chose Hillary. But this is a Trump district, and we're represented by a congressman who really isn't a conservative. His conservative review rating is 42%. 60 has always been just borderline F, right? Anything below 60 is an F. Well, he's got a 42% with conservative review. He's got a 50% with heritage, and he got all the way up to 58% with a club for growth. So anyway you slice it, this guy's a solid F in conservatism, and he really just doesn't fit this district. And after looking at his record and seeing how much he had really hurt us through his votes for insecure borders by voting for amnesty, he also voted for funding of Obamacare, which hurts us in the healthcare department. And then his latest vote has been to increase our national debt by $1.5 trillion. So we can do better. You and I can do better. Nevada can do better. America deserves better. We all deserve better. And so that's why I'm running.
You see, this is what I love about talking with you, Sharron. And we're talking with Sharron Angle, who's running in the 2nd Congressional District of the great state of Nevada. You're not a shrinking violet, and you're not afraid to run from a fight, even if the fight is within your own party. So it's amazing to see that. Are you getting any flack from the so-called establishment for deciding to take on a Republican district that is held by let's say, from your point of view, a Republican in name only? Are you getting a lot of flack from people on that?
Not yet. Not yet. And the reason is because we've laid pretty low. The only way that you will get flack from the establishment or even the Democrats is if they see that you've got a lot of money. And I don't have a lot of money yet. But I'm going to ask your listeners to help me in that regard by going to SharronAngle.com and donating whatever they can. In 2010, we were able to raise $28 million, but 94% of that came from donors who gave less than $100. And what that means is that it was a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. There were no special interests really represented there. And that's truly how this campaign should be as well. And, people say, well, why were you laying low? Well, there are a lot of reasons not to allow people to criticize you too soon in a campaign. It's all going to come out, but you want it to come out when you can control that environment rather than the slow drip, 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 drip that constantly goes on after you announce. If you're raising money, then they're ready to slap you immediately, and it doesn't give you enough time really to get your strategy together, to get your issues congealed, gelled like they should be. And it doesn't give you a half a chance at finding your constituency and really promoting your agenda. So we're right in that now critical stage where this is the time. By March 31st, we'd like to have our money in order, and you can help by going to SharronAngle.com.
Right, and there's also a GoFundMe that you've set up. Tell everybody about that as well. Make sure they go there.
Oh, sure. All of my friends on Facebook have got to know this. And even if you're not a friend yet, just go to Sharron Angle. You can just search me out and you'll find my GoFundMe there. So that's on Facebook. And of course, it all comes to the same place, SharronAngle.com. So whether you go to Facebook on the GoFundMe or go to SharronAngle.com and donate there, or if you just like writing the check and sending it to P.O. Box 33154, Reno, Nevada 89533. That's Sharron Angle for Congress, P.O. Box 33154, Reno, Nevada.